And she's not related. She's my best friend.
Let's see if my phone is, well, everything's the same.
In the last 30 seconds ago, you looked at it.
Jeez, dude. Okay, I got 6:30, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting of the USD 348 School Board of Education to order. I think we'll continue the tradition of doing the Pledge of Allegiance to begin. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we'll go ahead and talk about the approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second? Second?
Okay, we have a motion to approve it and seconded. Is there anybody that doesn't want to do that?
Okay.
Are there, for our new board members, are there any items within the agenda that, in terms of consent agenda, are there any items that you would like to pull for discussion? Otherwise, the motion that was, excuse me, the motion that was made would approve the agenda as is, including the consent agenda. So that's where this stage, as the board, as you're making that motion for the discussion. Are there any items there that you would like to see pulled from consent agenda for discussion?
I would need those in favor say aye, those opposed say nay, and then you can make another.
Okay, so Chris motioned and Susan seconded. So all those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 I'll say aye. Yes, 4. So 4-3.
Do you guys not agree? Does that include the consent agenda?
Yeah, that's what we're just talking about. And if there's confusion, maybe we should kind of re-talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
Just as a feeder, typically you guys will have the agenda hopefully a week ahead of time. You'll have it to look over, ask any questions of Mr. Dodge or I that you have. At the beginning of each meeting, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we will approve the agenda or approve an amended agenda to add or take things off that may have come up throughout the week after we made the agenda live. For instance, bids that we don't get back until like the day before the meeting. We will amend the agenda. I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended with the following amendments. So I know I had talked with you guys and there was a little confusion earlier. If you want to make a change to the agenda at all, this is where you would do it.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we rediscuss the approval of the agenda.
Got it?
So we need a second.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we'll talk about approving the agenda. This is the point, if anybody wants to change the agenda, this is your opportunity to change the agenda.
Okay. I make a motion to remove D7 from the consent agenda because I need more information of that process.
So D7 is in the consent agenda, the approval of appointment of BCRC board member. So we have a motion to remove that to discuss separately from the consent agenda, so we'll need a second.
Is it an option to discuss it tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It'll
without
just be moved
removing
down
it?
in the.
We're going to just basically separate it out, keep it in the consent agenda. We'll move it to consent agenda subheading
Okay.
9.
I second.
So all those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So 7-0. All right, so we'll move on then. Organizational items, parent, family, community engagement opportunities.
Tomorrow morning at 8:15, we will be having the Baldwin Junior High School Spelling Bee in the PAC. It's open to parents. Please just have the parents check in at the front office. Perfect. Thanks.
Any announcements from board members? Community members announcements stuff.
Just welcome to the board.
Yeah, welcome to the board.
Let's see, guys.
If you have any questions, save them till the end.
I guess I would just like to say.
Just kidding.
Welcome, and it's only as bad as you guys make it. Everybody is in a new position, so there is a lot of leeway. I mean, it's a pretty laid back
Yeah.
position.
We'll get it out.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to C then, annual organizational items. We have to decide who's going to fill the roles. For the first one, I'd say we'd open the floor for nomination for board president.
I nominate Phil for board president.
Do we second these nominations?
Yes,
Okay, I will second that motion.
great. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Am I trying? I guess.
I was gonna say it's gonna be 6 times.
Yeah. Well, I was going to abstain, but in Kelly's book, she said you're not allowed to abstain. Okay, so we'll take a nomination for election of board vice president.
I'd like to nominate Chris Perry.
Ooh, I'll second that.
Fine.
Baby. All right, we have a motion and a second. So nominate Chris Perry for vice president. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 7-0. I'm assuming I didn't hear any nays. Okay.
No.
I abstained.
Okay, abstain.
I believe those are the only 2 that we need motions.
Okay, perfect. So designation for the Board of Representatives to the interlocal. That is to the interlocal that meets in Wellsville for special education. I know, Chris, you've been doing it. And the load of vice president's going to be heavy on your shoulders. I don't know if you want to continue to do that.
Yeah, I think with the timing of the new director interview process going on there, I'd like to continue that.
Okay.
A membership of representation for the interlocal as well, but would welcome a second party to do it.
Yeah, I think we
They
do.
have a-
You have to. Don't you? We think we should have a
I
second.
nominate Jamie Cox.
Jamie, I was going to say, I think you'd be a really excellent member of that team.
I'm perfectly willing to do
Okay,
that. Yeah,
perfect,
absolutely.
wonderful, good. Okay.
Do we pick an alternate as well?
I mean, do you want 2 and an alternate?
I think we have historically done it that way.
We haven't had an alternate for the interlocal.
I think we've just had 2.
Okay.
And the second one, I think sometimes is just an alternate.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so then representative for negotiations for like teacher salary.
For those of you that don't know, we have 2 members of the board that will not be able to be nominated because they have spouses within the district. So you don't get to pick Mindy or Jamie, pick somebody else.
So is there anybody that's got a burning desire to be on the negotiations committee?
Phil, you've been on it and led it.
I have. That's me. I feel like somebody else should have a chance.
I'm happy to serve wherever, but not lead it.
Yeah.
I've never been on it. I mean, I've been on the teacher side of negotiations, so I've been in the process, but not.
I mean, I'm excited and happy to do it, but
Brad, are you?
I would say I would be happy to be on it, but I don't want to lead.
initially, I would like at least. Okay, fine. I'll be happy to do negotiations, but I would like somebody else to also be there so that knowledge continues, that process and understanding of that continues to down the road. So you want to be.
I'm only here 2 more years.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
And
worried.
I would be more than happy to find negotiations trainings through KASB and sign you up or send it to
Okay.
you, whether or not it's a PDF.
Okay, perfect.
Have we had an alternate for that before?
Yeah, we've always
Okay.
it's always been an alternate for that one.
So would it be okay to have the 3 of you?
I think we've had one and an alternate historically.
okay,
I think
okay.
is how it's gone. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We had 3. We had
3?
Yeah, last
Oh,
year.
I was the
it
alternate last year.
You were the
Yeah.
alternate last year.
I never did anything.
So
But you did it. You did.
Yeah, I did it
Yeah.
to the 3 years before that, or 2 years before that. Okay, so you get all that?
Phil and Brad?
Yep.
And
Do we want an alternate? Anybody else interested?
Susan?
I'm happy to serve wherever you need me.
Susan!
All right. How about for the wellness board, representative for the wellness committee? Sorry. Oh, I skipped one. Oh, sorry, the BEF. Yeah, that's what you were doing that before. Do you right?
No, I do district site council,
Okay,
which
you
isn't really an
BEF.
appointed one.
Kelly was BDF.
Oh, Kelly was there. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
maybe,
right.
or one of you
Yeah.
ladies in
BEF. If you're already in
I'm
BFF,
not,
it'd be
but I
great.
would be happy to do it.
They meet, I think, what, quarterly? I think it's 4 times a year, and then I think
It's
they
it's
do-
generally, it's twice a year
Twice a year.
generally.
Yeah.
And then as needed in between if necessary. There's a meeting tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at the Mid-America Bank Annex. And I did let them know that whoever was in that position may or may not be able to make it based on timing
Okay.
of the role. So
And that's a fun place to be because that's where they go around and give the grants. And so when they do the grants, you as the member of the board that's on the BEF gets to be there to see that all happen. So, so it's gonna be you, Lacey. Or
No, you can do it, yeah.
okay,
that's
perfect,
great.
good. Okay, wonderful. Wellness committee representative.
What's that?
Wellness Committee, this is a committee that it's kind of spearheaded with our district nurse, basically trying to promote healthy and active lifestyles within the staff. Right now, a lot of work that we do goes in towards monthly wellness challenges that take place. It's a lot of brainstorming, a lot of trying to come up with creative and new ways to help inspire staff to be active, take care of themselves. There's such a giving in that profession of always focusing on others. It's an opportunity to turn around and reflect on our own wellness. So that's basically what the group does. And we meet about 2 to 3 times a year, again, based on need. We'll generally meet over the summer to plan for the back to school push, where the real work to plan our wellness campaigns takes place.
I would say since I'm an alternate or backing up Phil for the negotiations, I'd be happy to do the wellness.
Okay, perfect. Do we need an alternate for the wellness committee in case the guy's not well?
No.
Okay, so designation of board representatives for bond facilities subcommittee, which I think we've historically used 3 people to avoid any coma violations. Do we want to continue with 3 people on the subcommittee? I think of everybody, I think I was the only one that's still present that was on that, so I'm happy to continue on with that. But it would be nice to have anybody who's interested, we can have up to 2 more.
Were any of the new people?
I'm interested in doing it.
Yeah, Dar? Okay,
Yeah.
very good. That's 2. Is there a third taker?
I
We only meet like every other Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday.
I do.
Well,
Okay, perfect.
Lacey too.
Okay. All right, that was easy. All right, so on to approval of the consent agenda, except for item 7, which we'll break out secondarily. So this would be, I need a motion to approve the consent agendas 1 through 6, and number, I guess 8 is the approval of the consent agenda. So 1 through 6 to break out, and number 7.
I move we approve the consent agenda with removing 7 for discussion.
So we need a second.
Second.
Susan motion and Chris seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So 7-0. So, on to item 7, approval of appointment of the BCRC board member.
All right, I'll kind of give some backstory. We were notified that we've got the BCRC has 2 positions that are board appointed. And past practice to that has been the recommendation would be made to the board by a selection committee that was operated through the BCRC themselves. And then the board would approve that individual through consent agenda. That is the practice that has been in place. The practice itself does allow for the board to conduct to identify a subgroup, if you will, to basically go through and do the interview process as allowed. Based on the timing of the outgoing board and the new board coming in, there was a lot of moving parts. We didn't start with the new board until the 8th, and we just had a lot going on. I went ahead and did some inquiry on past practice and just elected to go with the past practice. However, with the new board in place, I totally understand the idea of if this is a recommendation that's coming from the board and in reflection of the board, having the board be part of that process. So just know that the idea here, if the recommendation is approved or not approved, it is we would be able to put together a group that could do the interviews and move forward. What we want to make sure, though, is that we give the rec committee an opportunity to be able to get moving with the work that they need to get done. So that is my understanding of it. I asked Matt to be here to be able to answer questions or to be able to clarify this situation, because I want to make sure that everyone here has the right information. Matt, would you mind coming up and being able to talk about the process?
Yeah. Hi guys, Matt McClure, Director of the Baldwin City Recreation Commission. I don't know where I should stand.
Right there's fine. Right there's fine. Don't stand in front of the camera because it'll just get your back.
As Mark mentioned, we are a joint commission. So what that means is we have 2 school board appointed positions, we have 2 city appointed positions, and 1 position that's at large that's voted on by our board. As Mark mentioned as well, in the past, since I've been here, a little over 5 years, the practice has been, well, there really wasn't a practice when I first got here. So I kind of created a plan basically in order to recruit, to score candidates, and then we discuss at our board meetings, and we pass along those candidates to either the city or the school board, and then they approve, usually on consent. However, Mark is right. You do have, per state statute, you do have the right to conduct your own search, interview process, recruit, and then appoint members to our board. And either way is totally fine. And kind of what we've created is, and there's really been no good way to recruit board members in the past. Usually, if you had a pulse, boom, you were interested, you're in, right? So I developed a application, which I think you may have a copy of. And then from that application, we will score each applicant, is kind of how this works as a board. I do not, our board scores these applicants. Just like with any other position, the more information you can put on the application, the better you're going to come through and the better you typically score. And so with that in place, we pass that information along to the school board, and then they can make a decision based on the information that's presented, and that's kind of how the process has worked. But again, you do have that right to conduct a search, do interviews, and then appoint a position if you so desire.
If my understanding is the board would rather conduct their own search. To do that, we would need to then not approve the recommendation that came through. With the understanding that we put together our team to do that. My vision, if that would be the case, we would have subcommittees of no more than 3 board members as a part of it. Myself, and then I would visit with Gary to be on that committee as well, and possibly Bench to be on that committee to round out.
Yeah, and the city actually went through this process this past summer when we had an opening, and they included one of our board members on that as well, just to have some input. Okay. So we would request that if you do go that route.
How many applicants was there?
This year we had 6, or this time around we had 6.
Okay.
Not all get scored. If the application doesn't, if you can't get a good gauge on who they are, or the answers are maybe a little bit incomplete, we don't score those. So it behooves people to fill those out very thoroughly, because that's really the only opportunity we have to get a feel for who they are. We are going to amend our process moving forward. If the process stays the way it is currently, we're going to probably conduct interviews for the top 2 or 3 candidates, or a meet and greet situation where we can get face to face with those people, because paper doesn't sometimes do people justice versus meeting them face to face.
So this time there is no interview process.
We haven't done that before, but at our last board meeting, we did opt to, moving forward, we're going to amend the process to include a face-to-face, whether it's a meet and greet or an interview. I use the term interview lightly because, a lot of times in volunteer positions, which our board is, our board members aren't elected. And so we don't want to necessarily deter people from applying, especially if it's a very cumbersome process. So we want to try to keep that as easy as we can for people, but still get a good feel for who they are or who they would be as a board member.
What's the length of the term?
It's 4 years. So this particular position that we're discussing right now actually expires summer of 25. So then it would renew again. Yeah.
Out someone's term.
Correct.
So then at 25, you're going to have to go through that process.
Correct. And actually, we have 2 positions that will come open in 25, and they're both school board appointed.
Both school board appointed?
Yeah.
So do we have the option to, like, say if we approve this, then we have the option to change it for the next go round in 25? Okay.
You can do whatever you like.
Yeah, I just
You
want
can do it right now.
I just want more information about how it works, that's all.
Yeah.
And you have six members on the board?
We have 5.
5 members on the board.
2 city, 2 school district, and 1 at large. Yeah.
And then you, so you're kind of the 6th.
Yeah, I don't vote.
You're not a voter.
Yeah, I'm not a voter.
So now I have to decide what we want to do. So if there's somebody that says, hey, look, I think we should have more say as a school board in this, and we want to go through the process and make sure that we're, involved, then we would say we don't approve it. If everybody's saying, okay, that's cool, sounds good, maybe next time we want to be involved, we don't want to hold up your stuff now, then we say we want to approve it. So we need a motion for one or the other in a second.
So if you approve the recommendation, you're approving it through 25.
Yeah.
If you don't approve, then we need to
Get on
the plan.
Right.
I just think trusting the director of recreation department is a big important aspect of this whole thing, I guess. I don't have that kind of knowledge.
So I make a motion to approve the appointment by the BCRC.
We have a motion, we need a second. Oh, tie. Okay. Second. All right, all those in favor of approving the BCRC appointment for the board member, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
So 7-0.
Okay, very good. If you guys do have interest in changing anything, let me know, and we can sort of have this discussion.
Just since we're still kind of here talking about after we approve it, what kind of time frame do you normally spend? I mean, obviously, if this was midterm, maybe it was a little bit you didn't know, and all of a sudden now there's a spot that you have to fill.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little bit more of a time crunch. If the board wanted to become involved, would you want them to start that, like 2 months in advance?
Yeah, 2 to 3 months in advance would be great. Okay. Yeah. So we'd be looking at spring of 25 at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put that on my calendar.
Yep. There you go.
That's right.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so recognition then. This is the part where Kelly always stood up.
It is. You need to sign this.
Oh, you got that. No, I got it. I think he made me fucking.
So I asked Dan Walsmith to be here to speak about Evie's honor and accomplishment and stuff. So.
Evie.
Sorry, Evie.
It's spelled wrong on here.
I know, I'm just kidding.
It's a spelling bee thing, All right, so on behalf of the Baldwin City Board of Education, we support and promote excellence in all school activities. Yep, we got to go over there. Okay, there you go. Now you are. So, supporting excellence in all school activities, including spelling bees, right? So on this day, January 17th, 2024, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Evie for winning, right? The spelling bee. You know how to spell winning?
WINNING.
Okay. Do that one right there. Good job, Ms. Walsmith.
Yeah, so Evie competed in our school spelling bee. So each classroom elects 2 representatives. So we had 24 contestants, and that's all 3 grades. So she beat out everyone in her class and everyone else in her school to be our school champion with the word pervading.
I'm going to sit down.
She gets to move on to the Douglas County Spelling Bee on February 10th. And after that competition, there's a state competition and there's a national competition. So we are pulling for her to represent us well on February 10th. We're proud of Evie.
Okay, good job.
Yeah.
All right. Pervading? That was the word? I don't know what that means.
You use it to say.
Yeah.
Yes, I can't spell pervading. All right. School board recognition month.
So January is the annual month of recognition to school board members for all the work that you do. It's a volunteer position. It's an elected position. It's a position that comes with a lot of work and a lot of dedication and time. And so on behalf of everyone at USD 348, we want to thank you for all of your time and efforts that you put in. For those of you that have started putting in on the great work that takes place in our district. So, and in addition to that, Megan, Family Church provided these thank you bags also that you had in front of us.
They sent a card that's up there for you.
Yeah,
we pass it around.
Yeah, we go around.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. So educational program highlight, some technology.
Each month we ask a department or a building to provide an update or a highlight on what things are going on within the school district. Kate Marshall and Drew do an amazing job for our district and the technology access that we have, and she's here to provide an update for you.
I am. The update tonight, kind of because we have a lot of new board members, is very basic. It's kind of short and sweet. So in probably next month or the month after, I will be back and probably be asking for you to approve a lot of money to buy a lot of devices. So I thought I'd use tonight's educational highlight and kind of for the new board and board the old board just a little bit to talk about what sort of devices we have in the district and where they are. So I'm going to start out at the primary center. The primary center has iPads 1-to-1 for K through 12, and then they have some cards for preschool. Both of our elementary schools, previous to 2020, previous to the pandemic, had carts, some laptop carts, some iPad carts. We did a lot of reorganization with a lot of old devices back then to try to get a device into everybody's hand. But now we have kind of a rotation together. It was helped out a little bit by some grants initially, but now it's kind of worked out. So at the primary center, the majority of their iPads come across from the high school, from the graduating seniors' iPads. So we usually get 6 to 8 years use out of the iPads. And so we are going to, this year I think, I need to look at the rotation for sure, but soon we're going to get at least the second grade iPads into the actual rotation where they get something new in the building. Their learning management system, for the most part, is Seesaw over there. We are a little different than some districts, and each of our schools has a little bit of their own flavor of how they deal with devices and parents and apps and whatnot. They probably have the least amount of apps used over there. I kind of looked at, it's not like every student uses 30 different apps, but just looking at the apps that we've made available for everybody in the district. Theirs gets bumped up because a lot of them have, I don't know if you know what an Osmo is, but there are probably 15 Osmo apps. So in rotation, I would say regularly, maybe an average kid, we make available around 15 or so. So that kind of covers the primary center. The IC is in a similar situation. They had a few more carts, and neither of these buildings had a lot of input when we transitioned to 1-to-1, because it was kind of during pandemic, and we were kind of like, we can't deal with cleaning all the devices. How are we going to do this? We'll see that differed a little bit with the other two where we planned a 1-to-1. And when I say 1-to-1 at these buildings, they do not take the devices home. They're in the classrooms in a cart. But there's an iPad there for every student for the most part. The intermediate center uses Google Classroom as their main learning management system. And they have, more apps. They don't have all the Osmo apps, but we supply, when I say supply, we have a management system where they don't have the actual app store where we can push apps out to them. So when I grab a number, I just kind of looked at the management system to see how many apps we had available. That, again, doesn't mean that in any classroom there's anywhere near 40 apps used at a time. And those are currently on a 4, sometimes 5-year rotation. We're kind of trying to get, again, we had some grant money initially to get an iPad and all those, and then we kind of changed our rotation a little bit because we took the laptop carts out, and I can get about approximately 3 iPads for a laptop. So Kind of depends on keyboard cases and whatnot. But so I think if we had asked them pre-COVID, they would have been, oh, like, we really need the laptops. But we've had really, really good reception and feedback from having the iPads in the classroom and not having to move the carts around and stuff. So I think it's worked out well. At the junior high, they weren't one-to-one, and the board did approve a one-to-one at the beginning of the 2019-2020 school year. They spent the year before doing some research and having some meetings and talking about what they wanted to do. And they did pick Chromebooks. I found about 50 apps that we had in basically the store that Chromebooks use where we approved them. For all of these, when I say apps, there's a lot of websites teachers use too. The kids are going to log into the website and identify themselves. We have a pretty good control of that. But if it's something where you don't log in and you just use it, I can't tell you individually what's happening in each classroom with that. Those Chromebooks are currently planned for a 3-year lifespan. So the student gets it in 6th grade, and when they graduate 8th grade, we might use them again for spares or to replace ones that are broken somewhere along the way. But we don't plan on handing it back to a 6th grader and getting it used for another 3 years. The Chromebooks are more delicate than our iPads and laptops. I did look up, did I get that in there? Yeah. So I looked up from January of 23 to January of 24. Note that there are Chromebooks in 3 of 13 grade levels. We had 160 tickets for Chromebooks and 70 for the iPads. So getting a lot more tickets on them. But I think it's a really good thing to have a different experience. I think that's true of all of technology. I think it's all about, you learn a lot about what's possible. So that later, when you're somewhere and you're handed whatever, you figure out how to do it. Because you know these things are possible, and they're probably possible on any device and any kind of, application you get that's something like Word is going to do most of the same things. So having that different experience there in the junior high, I think has been good. They also have one iMac lab in their building. Our elementary schools do not have any laptop labs for the most part. There's some iMacs scattered around in a library or somewhere, but for the most part, they don't have that. And finally, in our high school, I couldn't remember for sure, but I think it was about the 14-15 school year when they first went one-to-one with iPads. They did probably a little more, that was a while ago, but they did a little more. They did a pilot the year before, and the year before that they did visits, and they spent a lot of time considering what they wanted. So they have been using iPads for a while, and our capabilities and management of them and handling of them has grown with that program. It's much better now than it was in 14-15. So at both the intermediate center and the high school, we're now buying laptops with keyboard cases, similar to what a couple of the board members have here. The newest ones for the high school actually have a trackpad that the freshmen received this year. Their learning management system is Canvas. So again, as we progress through, you get exposed to a lot of different things. So that is something they'll see, again, on a lot of college campuses. I found about 100 apps or so available to them. And their iPads, as I mentioned before, moved down to the PC. They also have about three CTE labs. The journalism lab isn't quite as big as the other two, but there's also some in art, so we'll call it 3. Those are on a 4-year rotation, and they have 4 laptop carts that are on a 6-year rotation. So we keep those laptops around a little bit more. And finally, in our virtual academy, students can request a device. I want to say maybe half do. We have had more requests this year than we have had in the past. Greenbush, at this point anyway, requires a Chromebook. So again, kind of at the beginning of 2020, we had purchased some extra Chromebooks, and so we have been using those. I'm not sure even at this point if we're ever going to need to work those Greenbush things into our rotation, or if we're going to be able to supply them from our teachers at the junior high also have Chromebooks as well as the students, and so we may be able to keep that going, just with the unused or the slightly out of date. And again, we're only using them for 3 years, so there's still there's not another 3 years of use in them, but you can pull out a few and find 20 that are going to do pretty well. So that's kind of where that is. And again, I just kind of wanted to walk through what was where. So in next month or the month after, when I come in and say, we usually buy everything. Well, it always has to be second semester because it has to do with when the money comes in. But buy everything here in the early spring so that we have it over the summer to set up and get ready. So do you guys have questions?
Are we still doing when they, I think I saw you were taking the high school iPads and taking them to the
primary center? Yeah.
It used to be they could have the option to buy them.
Yeah, and we have that. The board does look at that again every year, but for the past quite a few years, they've had the option to buy them. But I think we didn't do it the year we were really short on devices. We were trying to figure out how to get one-to-one, but we've had that option open again the last couple of years.
And I feel like we don't have a lot of takers.
No, we haven't there's maybe 4 or 5, some years a little more. It kind of depends on every year we look at purchasing the devices, and so the iPads aren't always they're the same quality, but sometimes they're higher storage, or Apple decided to obsolete an operating system sooner or later or something. So the price kind of goes up and down year to year. I kind of look at, and sometimes we buy maybe an iPad 7 2 or 3 years in a row. So the last year they got them, those seem older than not. But for the most part, the price goes up and down a little bit. So it's varied a little bit from year to year how many get purchased. I always look at basically what they're selling for and adjust it from there for the used ones. But yeah, we actually last year we also opened up the option for them to buy the Chromebooks because we were at the end of life with the HPs. Haven't really reached that point yet, but we might be there again. So we'll see.
And every year when we buy, I think iPad's a single source, right? So it's just fixed cost.
Right. So with the Apple devices, it's single source. So, and all of this money then will come out of capital outlay because it's their computers are included in capital outlay. Apple is a single source place to purchase, so we won't typically get bids from other vendors because they supply the education price. For the Chromebooks, those will go out for bids, and we'll have bids to look at for those. Great questions, Bill.
The president.
Yeah. Been paying attention all these years. All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you.
One thing that I do want to just point out while Kay's wrapping up, Kay and her team, they do a great job. When you break down Jake and Kay's student to adult ratio, they're operating 1 to close to 700. And the amount of students that they're and staff that they're responsible for is pretty significant. And I say this with the idea of when we start talking about our 3-year staffing, we are getting very close to a pinch point within their department so that we can keep the top quality services that we provide with technology up and going consistently for our students and our staff. We are getting close to a point where we need to get some additional bodies into that department and coming up with that. So that will be coming down the pike. Just wanted to point that out. So thank you, Kay, for
Oh, well, you're welcome. And I will leave most of that discussion for a later date, but I will say that in addition to the student devices, we are responsible for the staff devices and pretty much all the security and anything that looks like technology in the district. All right, thank you.
Celebrating 348 voices. Yeah, that's right. That's super good. At least I can still read it from here. All right. So celebrating student voices. I've not been present very long, so I haven't gotten any letters. I don't know if you've gotten any.
I have not, no.
So nothing right now.
But I will say that I did receive a phone call a couple weeks ago inviting me to take part in the blood drive today that took place. I had never donated blood before, and this time was the first time that I did it, and it was really cool to be a part of that this afternoon, watching the kids take ownership, promoting of it, helping out and assisting there. And some facts that blew me away today is when you sit down and you donate a pint, the statistics show that you're helping 3 lives, saving 3 lives. So that was pretty cool. So in a way, that was celebrating their voices.
Yeah, that's true. Perfect. All right, Mr. Dodd.
All right. So employee of the month. All right. Jam that. So each month, as for new board members, we started this last year, and the Baldwin Education Foundation helped support this program. And so each month, we put a survey out to our staff and seek nominations for employees of the month, those that are going above and beyond, and reflecting what the Baldwin Built hashtag represents. And so with that, tonight, the January Baldwin Built Employee of the Month is described as a consistently positive role model for students and staff. They go well above and beyond in their expectations, encouraging a passion for learning and improving. They offer positive feedback to all the adults and students they work with daily so that they always have at least one genuinely positive interaction each day. Your winner works in the community as well to improve business opportunities for the young women in our community, serves much of the Baldwin public at her other job, and is involved in many other community improvement programs. Your Employee of the Month volunteers or spectates at many Baldwin sports and activities, and is described as the most concrete definition of Baldwin Built that I have ever seen. One nomination provided the following quote in reflection of our winner. Great leaders are not defined by the absence of weakness, but rather by the presence of clear strengths. John Peter Zanger. So, at this time, please join me in congratulating your January Baldwin Built Employee of the Month, Sinead McBride. When I called and told her, I kind of drug her along, and I decided to use the awkward, what are you doing conversation, and really catch her while she keeps going, just, what is it you want? So I was like, well, I'd like you to show up to the board meeting. Okay, would you like to know why? Yes. So I told her and shared this news with her. And I told her that she now had a belt that she would be able to display prominently. Well, I happened to see her daughter later that day, and I told her daughter to make sure she gets the scoop on the belt and make sure it gets displayed and worn proudly. So, Sinead, congratulations.
Thank you.
A special prize that goes with that.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sinead, for all you do.
Congrats.
Do I?
Should be EF.
Yes.
For now on, you.
Oh, sweet.
I'm delegating.
That's smart.
Well, Kelly was the BEF, that's why she did it.
Okay.
All right, so do we have anybody sign up for public comment? Nope. Skip public comment. Financial report.
All right, so we have the capital outlay plan that projects about 3 or 4 years worth of projects that we need to do, and that's kind of a task order for Mike as he goes through and he develops and works on improving our facilities and our programs across the district. So one thing that's been on that list for several years has been the volleyball standards and divider curtain here at the high school. So that was one of our projects for this year, and so Mike has an update on the bids and an ask for you.
Well, we sent out the bids and got 3 back, and we opened them up on January 12th. The bids came from Athco, company out of Lenexa, Star, company out of Eudora, and Carroll's Seating out of Kansas City, Kansas. Carroll's Seating gave us the lowest bid offer, and they can meet the timeline for the installation of spring break. So that's that's what I'm recommending. You guys have any questions?
That's pretty well under what we had budgeted.
Yes,
we had
about
60. Yeah, we had 60,000 budgeted, right?
Mhm, 60,000 budgeted and 13,000 plus to put into the floor refinishing, because we'll have to refinish the floor and get it repainted. So that'll help there too. Bless you.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Mike's recommendation of Carol's seedings.
With the bid.
So a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay. Did you get that, Megan? We got our motion and our second. I can't see you. Oh, that's why I can't see you.
Yes, I got it.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. So all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
7-0.
Thank you, guys.
Do you want to just use this as a moment, Mark, to just kind of talk about the bid process? I mean, how we do bids? Because maybe for the new members, there's like,
So statute requires any project itself that requires an expenditure of $20,000 that it has to go through a state bid process. And by that, the bids have to be publicized, sent out, received by a certain time. There has to be a specific opening that takes place with a witness in the room, and they go through and they publicly discuss what the bids that came through, and they meet the different qualifications for that process. That's one way to approach these projects. Another way is you have what are called state contracts. These are pre-bid contracts that take place annually that are, think of it, it's a list of vendors that the state already says, yes, they meet all the qualifications, and you can go straight to them and get work done as you need, even if the work exceeds $20,000. But you still want to come to the board to get approval to do that. So Greenbush Cooperative Purchasing, you may hear that from time to time. Mike, what are a couple of the lists that you use for
We
the?
use, well, one of the state contracts we use is for our flooring, commercial floor works. They do our carpet rotation every year. They did the bay downstairs. We also use Omnia Partners, and I want to say something like CertNet. But there's probably 3 or 4 that we use on top of the just the state bid and the Greenbush Cooperative.
We purchased buses and vehicles in the same state.
Under the state,
contracts, right?
yes, under the same state
years,
contract.
locked in price.
Yeah, so buses, we just this last fall, we did 2 Chevy Blazers so that we had some alternative transportation for staff to use going to and from events or being able to transport kids. What are some other state contracts? We talked about carpeting.
Yeah, those are the most recent, which would be the buses and the vehicles. Which the 2 vehicles were through Greenbush Consortium, so they vet those and they bring those on.
So I think that's just important to know as a new board member that it's a pretty strict process for like how you can get bids and then submitting bids and who can compete for those bids. And I think we've got a little bit of a precedent. Like if we get only a single bid, a lot of times we'll say, look, let's put this back out there or try to figure out so we can get other ones.
But sometimes too, the Greenbush prices aren't always the best. The ASCO is on that list for Greenbush, and it came out to be the highest bid.
So generally what you try to do is seek out the lowest responsible bid. Sometimes there are times where that lowest bid may not be the best bid for a variety of purposes. Sometimes Mike, we talked about timeline being very important, being able to accomplish a project within a certain time frame. Sometimes it's the ability to stay local help. So there are a variety of factors that go in to making that.
Let's come up with buses before too. We want to keep them all the same fleet.
Under the same fleet.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we can, and that saves us money on parts and repairs and all that, right?
Yep.
Thank you. Any questions about that before we move on? No? All right, so on to administrative reports, the KASB policy updates.
All right, so what I've provided for you is just a first look at the draft policies. KASB generally sends the first look to us in December, but with the transition of the board being what it was, what I wanted to do is move that first look this year to January to give our new board members an opportunity to be a part of that versus coming in this month and then going ahead and voting on something. So what we'll do is we'll get a first look this month, and then next month we will come through with an ask to approve the policies that are there. And so what you've got, the red line is the recommendations from KASB, our Kansas Association of School Boards, who helps us with the different policies that come place. Most of them that we get are in reflection to legislation, new legislation that takes place. And so that's what you'll see. It's not uncommon to see something that'll say is in alignment with state statute, and that's one. Or it may be amending a previous policy based on statute that's there. The other attachment that I have there for you is showing you the recommendations that we're looking at as of this time. Next month, what I'll do is I'll come through and we'll have an ask to approve the policies. And so just kind of doing a rundown here. The evacuations, the emergency policy that's there, we currently have that policy, but this one would be an update. So at this time, what we would, next month when we go through and ask for the approval there, we would be wanting to do so under the idea that it approves the revision, giving our administration the ability to make decisions based on the safety of staff and students. The next policy that you see listed there is EE, Food Service Management. I want to move this, the description of this to the February meeting because that particular policy is in response to deficient fund balances for lunch accounts. And it spells out policy for how to respond in the event that a student becomes deficient within their lunch balance. Option 1 provides an opportunity to go forward with the regular meal, but you have those behind the scenes efforts to make sure and you help the family get that balance paid off. Option number 2 is the idea of giving them an alternative meal and trying to do so in a way that does not single the child out. So some districts it's a peanut butter sandwich, a cheese sandwich, sometimes it's a deli sandwich, whatever the district or board approves of that piece there. What I want to do is really talk with our food and nutrition staff about that. I do know that they feel strongly about making sure every kid gets a solid meal and their dignity is preserved in the whole process. So I want to go through and spend some more time with Charlie on that before I come back with a specific recommendation there. The pregnant and parenting employees, that is one that you'll see that puts us in compliance with law that's there. It would be a new policy. The GARID is military leave. We currently do have that policy, but this revision would reflect the federal requirements that are now there and inform those that may not be aware. And so we would recommend next month that we approve that policy. The JBH, releasing of a student during the school day here, we would say to recommend that policy as it has a pigtail to the very first policy that we talked about, the evacuations and emergencies. Let's see, moving down to JDDAA. Student misuse of medication, that one is also a pigtail policy with JGF, GBA, student self-medicating policy, self-administration of medication. So the first one there, the misuse deals with students who, pass out medication at school. Whether it can be anything from ibuprofen and Tylenol all the way up to something that is more substantial in that nature, and it provides some teeth there. And then the second policy that's there is just the ability for families can give their student permission to be able to carry some ibuprofen with them, that sort of thing. I really want to have a really solid conversation with our school nurse on that. So in February, we'll have a recommendation there. We know it's important, but we want to do it in a way that best reflects our students and provides responsibility and accountability. So in February, what we'll do is we'll go through, there'll be a revised recommendation there to reflect the conversations that I want to have with Charlie and Lisa to do so. All right. So at this time, there's no ask for any approvals.
And then we'll also have an opportunity to talk about them a little bit in February. So make sure that you go through that red line one. Will show you exactly what's changed and spell everything out. And then the second one is Mark Dodge's recommendations. So have a chance to read that between now and then. So fall and winter academic screening update.
All right. So one of the things that we have been working on is trying to make sure that we provide the board an update with the data that we are collecting, the work that we are doing for student achievement throughout the course of the year. One of the measures that we leverage there, that we use throughout this course of the year to make sure we're providing students with the best possible individual instruction that we can, as well as help inform our instructional decisions within the classroom, is screening data. We do screening 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, and that information helps guide our instruction to make sure that we're providing students with the supports and services they need to excel. So I've asked Ashley to what's that? That was your presentation?
So, I'm just going to do a quick update comparing fall and winter from this past year. In the spring, I'll dive deeper into like the whole year of data with state assessments and all of that. So we use FastBridge, which is a national norm screener from reading and math. We are going to look at A reading and A math, which are aligned with our national Common Core standards. Students take about 30 questions, and we give this 3 times a year in the fall, in the winter, and the spring to grades 2 through 11. Based off those scores, sorry, my voice is shaking really bad. Students are categorized in 4 categories: advanced, low risk, high risk, and some risk. So our data is going to be over those scores, as well as high schoolers who scored 16 and above in reading in the pre-ACTs and 18 and above in ELA on the ACTs. Those are your college readiness benchmarks. So these are our last 3 screening periods. Last spring at the end of the year, the beginning of this year, and then this past winter. So we want our students in that low or advanced categories, in that purple, and we want to see decreasing in these pinks, which are some and high risk. So this winter, we saw scores similar to our spring, which is great. We had 68% of our students in low risk or advanced compared to 67 in the fall. And we saw a decrease in our high risk from fall to winter. Our math looks really great. We had our high risk percentage, the lowest we've ever had since starting FastBridge 3 years ago, so 7% at that high risk. And then we have 71% of our students at low risk or advanced in that math. So that is our reading and math, just that comprehensive screener. But we also are going to go over our social and emotional data, which we also collect from FastBridge. We use their social, academic, and emotional behaviors risk screener, which is, or SAVERS. It's a 20-ish question rating scale. My SAVERS is completed by students, grades 3 through 12. This, we need parent permission. They have to opt in their students. And they answer questions like, I'm worried, I'm respectful, I like school. And then SAVERS is our teacher completed survey, grades pre-K through 12. So last year, the state changed some of the requirements for non-academic surveys. So we held off and didn't give my SAVERS last year. So we started this year. And in the fall, we had 82% of our students score in that low risk, 15 in some, and 3 in our high risk. Our winter screener is open right now, so we won't have data until the end of January. And then SAVERS is completed by teachers. We saw a increase from spring to fall of our low risk and decreased our some risk. And then we'll have our winter data later this month. So our goals looking at these screeners is we want 80% or more of our students in that low risk or advanced category, 15 or less in some risk, and then 5% or less in that high risk. In a perfect world, 100% low risk, but ideally these are our goals. So some things we have in place to help us accomplish these are we have a really good multi-tiered system of support in both of our elementary buildings. So students that have any deficit in reading and math are in a small group 3 to 5 times a week working on those missing skills. At the junior high and high school, we have our student success or core 4 class for extra support for those kids that might be high risk. Using Bassbridge, attendance could be a high risk category. Did I say attendance? Attendance, grades. And then all students in all buildings that are considered at risk are being progress monitored frequently just to make sure they're still growing and making progress. We are currently training staff in the MTSS process using Kaizen. We are concentrating on behavior, and we're already making those goals in our behavior screener data. So we're excited to see that work with reading and math as well. Last year we adopted a new curriculum for our elementary, and this is year 1. So it follows the science of reading, and we are implementing it right now. So we are excited to see those results. And then we are looking for new materials for junior high ELA as well.
Just to clarify a couple acronyms that you'll see there. So MTSS, that's multi-tiered system of support. Again, that speaks back to utilizing data to make sure that we're making instructional decisions for interventions for students.
But it's also tier 1.
It's tier 1.
Foundation,
It includes
strong, rigorous instruction.
It also includes what we call core instruction, or the tier 1 there. Kaizen, Technical Assistance Support Network. I liken them to trainer experts that go around helping school districts implement the tiered systems of support.
Susan is one of the trainers that does this for the supports districts across the state with behavior.
I'm in Wichita.
You're in Wichita. You're in the Wichita region.
But sometimes I drop by.
So yes, and we do brainstorm quite a bit, and so those are 2 EduSpeak words that you'll probably hear quite a bit, because it is something that we are focused on and making sure that we have that systematic structure across our district, so that when students leave elementary, we've talked about, we've got a strong system going K through 5. When they get to the junior high and high school, we're working to make sure that those support system itself is in place in those 2 buildings, so that we can continue to help students as they progress through our system. So,
yeah,
sorry, Ashley.
Yeah, no, our elementary does a really great job right now of doing the tier 1 for everybody. We use a lot of Bassbridge data and other data collections and teacher input for that tier 2, so they're getting an extra hit, and then those high-risk kids are going to that tier 3 where they're getting 3 hits of specialized instruction to really make that growth.
And it doesn't exclude, just because I have to chime in.
Please.
I have to. It does not exclude special education. Special education
is part of that tier.
Included in the framework of multi-tier. So it's not like you're in tier 3 and then there's special ed. No, it's not. A special ed student could be in tier 2 or tier 1. It just depends on what their needs are.
Yes.
But I was curious what your participation rate was on the mice.
Ooh, that's a good question.
You can let me know later.
I will. So in the fall, we included that opt-in, opt-out survey with enrollment. So we had a good response. For the winter, we have to send out another opt-in, opt-out. And our response right now, we have about maybe 50%, but only 15 are opting out of that 50%.
So one of the things to talk about
lack of response,
with
My Sabres piece, because it is student perspective, it's very powerful and meaningful. Sabres itself, which is the teacher scoring, it's still beneficial, but the My Sabres itself, it provides a direct student response, and that's why we find that information so meaningful.
And the research even finds it more meaningful from the student at the secondary level.
Right.
So it's really good to get that perspective.
So.
But I know our fall participation will be much higher than our winter participation.
Is there an option to put, like, when they do the enrollment, to put fall and winter, and or there's like a timeline?
The state statute only allows for 4 months.
So we can put winter and spring together, but because of the timeline, we can't put fall and winter together.
For the ELA adoption this year for the middle school, does the version of things we got for the K-5, does it also have a version for the middle school as well?
The company has an ELA, but it's not necessarily aligned with
It's
the
not like
elementary.
2.0 or something?
No, it's two different names, but it's, Amplify does do a elementary, which is what we have, and a middle school, but not necessarily.
They're not connected?
Yeah.
Okay.
Overall, we're really happy with our progress. We know that students and staff work really hard in all areas, not just what we can show you here. So that is all I have. If there's any more.
I had a question on the goals. How are those goals set? Is that a district thing or a state?
That's an MTSS
It follows
framework goal itself.
Follows like think about the medical model of you screen everybody to see what else they need. You don't go in and give everybody a penicillin shot because everybody doesn't need that. You screen everybody with their height and weight, and that's how they screen. And then the goal being 80% is in core instruction. If you have less than 80% in core instruction, so if you have like 40% who need interventions, it's really hard to provide that. So that's why it's very important that we consider tier 1 before even the intervention.
So when we start seeing information that shows that our low risk is 40 to 60%, that's where we start questioning, all right, are our core instructional materials meeting our needs? So that's part of that discussion.
So in relation to that, it looks like in both math and reading currently, we're below that 80% threshold, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know we just had professional development for our staff members where they, was it the whole day or half day where they sat with the data to have conversations about that? Are there any things that the board needs to know about those conversations? Because obviously we want to get to that 80% and beyond, like you said, but.
So for reading, we are at 68%, where we changed, so knowing that's kind of
Like a tier 1 problem, our core, we changed our elementary ELA curriculum, which we're only 6 months in. We're looking at middle school. And then in our math, we are at 71%, having conversations about where we need to adjust there. So yeah.
I have 2 different questions.
Sure.
The data points that you look at, are those strictly off of FastBridge, or are you guys looking at any of the project-based?
So this is our, what I showed you was our screener. So these are our at-risk based off of that A math or A reading scores.
So how do you discern between kids that are just terrible test takers?
So for this data, we don't, because this is just our screener, what we use to report to the state. When you're making your groups, though, that is a team-level conversation. So at each grade level, there are data meetings, and they pull in state assessment, grades, attendance is sometimes something you need to look at, and then teacher input is all part of that.
Teacher input is where you would get feedback based on progressions with projects. And one of the things we talked about at the calendar meeting is
There's no end-all be-all assessment that's out there.
Right.
And so we tried to bring in as many different perspectives with data that we can to that. There are some kids that just are not good test takers, but their work in the classroom is keeping them up to a point where we're understanding. Sometimes it's the stress of knowing that there's a time limit. Sometimes it's just being in a large room setting with everybody. Sometimes we need to just pull them into smaller groups. There are other factors that you can come into play. That's where the MTSS side of things, when you pull those team-based conversations into the mix of brainstorming. This is what the data is telling me. I'm not seeing that elsewhere. What are some other things we could do for a student? So
But they validate their data by making sure, like, what, if the kid was sick or something, they can retake it, this screener. Or if they were, just going through push and CC, these will let you know. Like, they talk about validating it in their grade levels. I'm assuming, well, maybe you when you get together with them, but
yeah.
if it's not valid, they can retake it.
So yeah, this is the data we can look at, like, from a bird's eye view that is on paper, but then, there's those team meetings. I get to be part of some of them, but I don't hear, every decision they make. But when they go to make their groups, that's the things you bring in. Is, actually, that was a conversation today. We were looking at a growth report from this in third grade, and there was conversations about they had a really rough day. So next time, just those kinds of things are considered.
Okay, and then what does the progress monitoring look like? Is that just like retaking the test?
It is not. It depends on the subject, and then each student, depending on grade level, take different tests. So the A math and the A reading are comprehensive of what we report, kind of your overall, but there's also like a fluency. So depending on where they scored at risk, depends on what they take.
So whatever skill we're trying to recover is where that.
We're going to just work, we're just going to progress monitor that skill.
And you start with the lowest skill and then gradually.
Yes. So for most kids, it's that it's going to be that fluency for reading, and so they would do an oral reading, a timed oral reading, or if it's comprehension, then you do the comprehension. Math, you work on math fluent or facts or a general math test. It just depends on the skill. It looks different at every grade level and every skill. Any more questions? All right, that's all I have for you.
All right, moving on to old business, legislative priorities.
All right, so last month, with the transition of our board, we talked about coming up with a list of priorities that the board would like to stake claim to in terms of what we want to focus on, what wants to focus on. And then this month, with the new board being seated, we would review that list and see, one, is that are those priorities still in alignment with what we want to do? And then two, trying to provide some definition or articulation to it. And so what I tried to do, and I'll move this to, public comment, public facing. What I did is I took a reflection of the conversation that we had and tried to put some narrative to define what those priorities were. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment to look at what the legislative priorities draft shows there. From there, we can wordsmith it, we can talk about it. Is there anything on it
that doesn't fit, or did I completely misread what the group was talking about, and then does this board still agree? And if so, I can begin the process of getting this information to our legislators as they are currently in Topeka starting to have discussions on things.
I think these are great, and I think it matches the conversation we had recently. I don't know how to phrase this properly, but under the local control piece, I think one benefit that we have as a local board is that we meet monthly. We're not the legislature that meets for 4 months a year type of thing, and so we can be much more responsive to the needs of our community that arise when the legislature's not in session. So I think that's one big benefit that we have, that if an issue comes up in June, we cannot wait for the legislature to resolve that conflict the following June, basically, right? So I think that's a benefit that might be worth articulating there of why it's important for us to continue to have jurisdiction over our decisions here and be responsive to what our community actively needs at the time.
All right, so by
Again, I'm
meeting
not sure-
monthly,
that's way
you can
too long
move
to phrase
quickly.
that, but
Nope,
yeah.
so meeting monthly can move quickly on issues that are important to the
I
community.
think
We're
that's a big
nimble.
benefit of having local
Nimble.
office.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise I thought you captured our conversation really well.
Yeah.
All right, so with the addition of meeting monthly so that we can move quickly on issues that are important for our community, with that being added, would the board be willing to approve these priorities?
I would have one more thing to add, and that's under special education funding, and just the encouragement to bring special education funding as a singular topic bill and pushing
Clean
that.
bill.
Clean bill.
To remove, okay.
And that might be what you meant by that, should be addressed
Well,
in a clean state school funding
And
formula.
I can put singular clean
I
bill.
think singular is important without any other topics.
Yeah, no vouchers attached to it.
Nothing else,
like-
just special education
'cause I think
funding,
it would,
period.
I think you're right, I think it would pass, it'd be more likely to pass, I think, if it was just a clean,
Okay.
2%.
Okay.
That's good.
Anybody else? So I'll make a motion that we approve the Baldwin Board of Education legislative priorities for 2024 and go ahead and distribute them to our locally elected state officials.
With the two.
But the addendums as we've added.
A second.
You want a motion and a second? All those in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye.
Jamie.
All right, so old business bond study and facilities update.
All right, do we need to take a recess, or are we
I
good to
don't
keep
need
going?
recess. Does anybody need a recess for anything?
All right, we'll keep going. Basically, what I just wanted to do was just in the public forum be able to basically recap what we talked about in the work session, which was also in a public setting. So basically, we reviewed the history that led us to the bond issue last spring that had the 8 different focus items. That also included a 2.9 increase to the mill levy that was essentially voted down by our community. Taking some time with the bond subcommittee, meeting with our architects, DLR, and construction management at risk company, Lloyd Builders. We've gone through and really looked at what the feedback from the community was, and moving forward from that particular perspective, the conversation then has really steered towards the importance of focusing our efforts on making sure that we address CTE facilities, making opportunities for properly outfitting those programs with what they need to be industry ready, as well as expanding the opportunities for our kids. We continue to have that focus on safety and security. The breezeway, the covering of the breezeway, making sure that we have adequate parking at the facility itself. And then another safety item that came up through our discussions and conversations with administration over at the junior high is the ability to create an opportunity to have a fully functioning and operational bus loop in which buses can pass each other and get the bus drop off and pick up off of Quail Street and into our bus loop. And so with that, the conversation is steered to an effort in doing so, the importance, listening to the taxpayers, listening to our community, doing so in a manner that stays mill neutral. And focusing on that as the projects that we've got listed there. I'm going to move the images up to public view. One second here. The idea behind this is expanding our CTE facility, maintaining the acquisition of, or the maintaining use of the bus loop would then require changes made by renovating our current shop space, as well as doing an addition to the high school itself, which would connect just to the outside of what's currently the culinary arts room. The ability to do that would require us to go across that road that leads to what's now the current path to the bus loop. And so in doing so, a new path or new road would be established between the bus barn itself, the fencing there, and the junior high, which does allow for enough space for buses to pass one another. And that's what the item that's labeled as the flattened document indicates there. The parking just north of the high school itself, as you can see, that is a smaller footprint than what the initial bond had, so we're reducing parking spaces. We're somewhere around 400 spaces. We're looking around 200 spaces at this point, as well as new entrance opportunities off of Eisenhower and 6th Street to divert traffic to the north of the high school so that we can alleviate traffic flow at the junior high for arrival and dismissal. That, coupled with getting our buses off the street in front of Quail, I believe will make junior high dismissal a much safer experience for students, for drivers, our high school drivers, our parents, and a lot of stress alleviated to our high school administration there. It also, by having the bus pick up and drop off in the functioning, which would be a fully functioning bus loop at that point, allows an opportunity for students to be waiting for buses within that breezeway. That would allow, so if weather itself were to become raining or snowing, it would allow them to be able to be in a covered space. It would also allow for adult supervision to be in a more focused sense for the students there. Trying to think. The CTE additions that are shown there allow us to increase the square footage beyond what we currently had and far exceeds what the previous bond put together. So the work with the CTE and the bus loop that's there would allow us to move our freezers closer to the junior high kitchen. I'm trying to think. Over at the CTE side, one of the concerns that has been brought up through from community members is being able to have exterior access to a restroom for events that take place at the tennis courts or at the JV football field. And so work could be done there to make sure that exterior restrooms would be provided there on the outside of the CTE structure. So
I didn't get to make it to the work meeting. Was it well attended by anybody from the community? Is it pretty?
Nope.
No.
Nope. No community members.
Okay. So only one question that I wanted to ask about was currently I know for junior high football players, when they walk out, they normally are walking out and going straight across to get over to the fields. Are they just going to go out and around? I mean, is it not much further?
My assumption is they're probably going to need to navigate the hallway.
So they're going to go through the hallways.
That would be my assumption. But that's a good question for Brent and Derek. That would be something we want to work on.
Because currently they come out the little doors,
and they cut through
the bus loop across there.
Those doors will probably still be there.
I think so. But I just mean that now instead of being able to cut through, I guess they just would go around the CTE. Is that what we would envision?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because normally they cut right down through what is now the bus loop.
Yeah.
I'm assuming what they would wind up doing is just going straight through.
Going through the building.
Yeah, going through the building straight through and across right outside the culinary arts room.
I think this is a very elegant solution. I mean, I think you alluded to the idea that this is pretty dramatically more CTE space than we had. Because I think we were, with the new addition, it was only going to add like 7,000. I mean, this is like closer to 30,000.
Well, and one of the benefits that what it allows us to do by keeping the bones to what's currently the shop that Mr. Harmon uses right now, keeping those bones and the renovation per square foot fee there wouldn't be as extensive, and we'd be using prefab structures there, and that will help also with some costs. But they would do so in a way that would bring our instructional facilities to an industry standard for the students. The concept itself for each program, there would be a classroom. For every classroom, there's a lab. So you have culinary arts classroom, you've got their industrial kitchen, you've got your ag science classroom, you've got your ag science lab. you've got your industrial, your woods, your metals classroom, and you have your lab spaces there as well. And so the focus on this structure itself would be the ag sciences, which will be a fully functioning pathway here in just a couple of months once we get our application into the state. The culinary arts, focusing on the culinary side of the pathway itself, as well as Tom's metals and manufacturing and woods, and then also opportunities. If we can flex this in, a fourth component, which would be the health sciences, and part of that discussion is sports science, sports medicine, which is something in the area that other districts aren't doing, so it would be something that would be innovative and new. So Brant, I'm throwing you under the bus if you heard that, that we're looking at the sports sciences, the sports medicine piece. That's still the direction we're trying to head.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would encompass currently what we're doing now, like kind of the direction of the certified, the CNA, but then adding sports medicine. But also, who has the best pulse on that is Mr. Madrano.
Yeah.
So we get some feedback there as well.
He's our Swiss Army knife CTE teacher. So, but the next steps here that should the board choose to proceed here in February, we would be looking to take the we would looking to have a resolution passed that would allow us to proceed to a community election. In doing so, and next month we'll make sure that we have our architects. Lloyd will be here. Piper Sandler will also be here, and all will be confined in the ask of maintaining a mill neutral bond question for the community to consider.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right, so then on to new business, early release, late start, focus group update.
Yes, I just wanted to provide you with an update. In December, or November, I asked if the board would like me to consider looking into once a month late start, early release as an option as we build the calendar for the next school year, how it coincides and intersects with the work we are attempting to do with MTSS. Trying to make sure that we are responding to the data that our students are providing in a way that allows each building the opportunity to effectively look at student data and determine the best steps and practices moving forward. In December, I provided a community survey, and so I provided the results to you there that were in terms of the survey raw data numbers that are listed there. And from that, I had a community focus group get together last week, and we talked about late start, early release in a little more detail. One of the things that I had the group do was look at here's the data before you leave. Here's the data that came from that survey. Are there any marching thoughts that you want, or closing thoughts you want me to consider? And one of the things that was asked was the data that was combined. It shows that in terms of positive comments or positive impact on that final page of the data, you'd see what would the overall impact be? 1 being a significantly negative impact, 4 being a significantly positive impact, and 3 being positive and 2 being just negative. When you look and you combine the 3s and 4s, about 73% of the responses indicated that going to an early release or a late start would provide a positive impact of some sort. And some of the feedback that I received from the focus group was, okay, that information probably needs to be dug into a little bit deeper, split it out. What did the teachers who took this survey, what did they reflect? What did they think? And so what I did is I took that information and I dug deeper to it. And so, excuse me, about 60% of the responses were 3s and 4s. When I pulled out the teacher data, it was 73% of the teachers that took, or the staff members, I should say, the staff members felt that it would provide a positive or significantly positive impact. And so the survey results that came there from the teachers, that the group there, to me, the 73% that's a pretty solid number. But what I want to do is dig a little bit deeper to that. So on the 29th, and this will probably be new information for the principals that are sitting back there, what I'd like to do on the 29th, which is a Professional Development Day, is provide another round of survey to the staff that are there, all of our teachers that are on duty for that, to find out what are their thoughts. Because I will tell you, of that 73%, the number listed there is we're looking at 81 total teachers, or 81 total staff. We have 200 staff within the district. So it's almost half, but I'd like to see if we can get a little bit more solid information there. Some other information that was asked of me from the focus group was, what does the data say? What does the research say on it? There's a book right now that I've got on my desk, or it's in my backpack right now. I brought it for the meeting. It's about this thick. It's Dr. John Hattie. It's his visible learning research that's there. It's his second edition, and it's basically a meta-analysis of research data. So it's really diving deep into what the research is telling. So taking a variety of all of the different research inquiries into a specific topic that falls under a best practice, and how does all that combine and meet or work towards effectiveness. And so when looking at the idea of how does pulling teachers together for an hour and a half once a month, what would the data say towards having an impact on student learning? And through the visible learning research of Dr. Hattie, what collaboration of that, what it can do is it can provide an opportunity for teachers to develop estimates of achievement for their students, and that has an impact or an effect size of 1.3. And on his scale, it's numbers that only he totally understands, but a 1.3 means very impactful. Anything that's a 0.4 or higher has a positive impact on student learning. And it is a direct result of the impact provided by the staff and the teachers. Anything below 4 is generally merely sitting in the space and breathing the same air, if you will. So teacher estimates of achievement. So when teachers are looking at data, when they're looking at student goals and their student needs, and when they're looking at providing interventions for students, they're developing goals for those students. That does play a positive role there. Teacher collective efficacy about their impact. It's a lot of big fancy words that basically says by having these conversations and working together, we have the ability to become stronger because we are working together, and we have that shared belief that what we are doing works with kids. That has an impact size of 1.34. Again, that's a very impactful result. Planning and prediction is also another area there that Hattie's research shows has a positive impact on student learning and growth. That has an impact size of 0.83, which is also in that very impactful range. And so the data there is supportive of getting teachers together, looking at what data is telling us, setting goals for those kids, and providing a plan of instruction to move forward. So the data is there for that. I decided to reach out to the area superintendent, since we were already communicating this week regarding the snow issues and the frigid temperatures we've dealt with, and looking into districts that are already currently doing an early release or late start at some point. Prairie View has a late start Wednesdays. Wellsville does late start every other Wednesday. Eudora does early release once a month on a Wednesday. Lewisburg has late start for high school only. K through 8 is worked in through the school day with classified staff providing supervision for students so teachers can meet. Lawrence does every Wednesday early release, and Ottawa does every Friday early release. So those are the districts that responded back. Early release or late start, it's not a new concept. It is something that's been around for a while. But what needs to happen is having the solid foundations for those conversations that take place. I've been in districts where early release and late start is working highly effectively. They've got the shared ideas of what we're going to talk about, what are the must-do conversations. and there's that accountability, that reporting back piece that's necessary. That was something that was brought up and identified by the focus group as an accountability measure of if a late start or early release is implemented, what's that accountability look like? And it was advanced agendas, sticking to the agendas, having a report mechanism in place, and being present, setting norms or setting rules that we will all abide by in these meetings. That was all part of that focus group conversation. So the idea itself of a late start, early release, it is something that I think is a great opportunity for students to be able, or for students and staff, in the sense that we can better provide and support for students by looking at data. Our current system is set up at the elementary level. We've got a plan period once a week where teachers are looking at data, or once a month looking at data. At the elementary level, there's more of a common plan opportunity. At the junior high, there's more opportunity for common plan. For the high school, there's not that opportunity for common plan. To get teachers within the same content area or the same grade level in the same space to look at how students are doing and learn from one another and set goals for kids. It is something that I think it's a good conversation. I'm glad we're having it. Next week, I'll be going over this data with our admin team and getting their perspective of how the focus group meeting went. Nicole was there that night, so she's got a perspective I'd love to hear, as well as the opportunity to hear from more teachers regarding their thoughts on it. So at this time, what I would envision is in February having a calendar for you, a draft calendar that would show a traditional school year like we've always had, and a calendar that would have, based on the feedback that I'm seeing right now, I do feel comfortable saying that the early release is the mechanism that would probably be most widely implemented, but there's also some challenges that we would have to address should that take place. What do we do to help with student supervision for families that they don't have any other option? How does that impact how does that cross with our after-school program with Baldwin City Rec Commission that they run? And how can we, is there a way to partner with Baker University to do some things? I think there's some more questions that came out that popped into my head as a result of the focus group, as opposed to answers that I was hoping to gather, if that makes sense. So in February, I will have I'll have a couple of calendars to look at, and then a recommendation for the board to consider moving forward. So
what do other communities that you talk to do for families who can't get there at 1:45? I mean,
it's in the Eudora community. It was families, you need to come make arrangements. It's on the calendar. It's built in. They made plans. Eudora had a district run, is funded by parent fees after school program, but that was non-operational on early release days, and so families had to come in and pick up their kids or find alternative care for their kids. I talked to Wellsville superintendent, and they utilize their classified staff on their late start days, so the kids can still come in and classified staff supervise and monitor the students while the teachers are finishing up their assessment meetings or their data meetings, and then they start their day.
I'm curious, the only one I heard you say that did it once a month is Eudora, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That you talked to?
Let's see.
Everybody else does it more often than that?
Let's see. Prairie View said late start Wednesdays. They didn't specify how often that was. Wellsville was every other Wednesday. Eudora was once a month on Wednesdays. Lewisburg was late start for high school. Did not indicate what day of the week there. Lawrence is every Wednesday, and Ottawa was every Friday.
Okay.
So from Mindy and Jamie, is there anything from the focus group meeting that took place that I may have left out of conversation?
I think the biggest concerns I heard were what about the families that don't have other options, because there's a lot of families that work out of town. Some of our bus drivers may have day jobs that they work in between bus routes. How would we manage that, getting them to school or from school?
And sports practices?
Sports practices, the kids that may leave at 1:45 at an early release, what are they going to do in those in between times? And I know that was one of the community concerns we heard as well.
And I will tell you that in my prior life, just north of here, the students were responsible for getting back for practice. So they did it
Even
once.
the junior kids or the?
And it was once a month. And you know, one of the things that this is just me talking off the cuff. I could see, you know, for junior high kids, maybe that is the early morning practice on that Wednesday. You know,
Just open the gym for the hour or two.
yeah. So there, I think that's part of that is the discussions that would take place to have those discussions there. But definitely, what do we do for practices?
Does any of this need to be run through the teacher contract? Like, do these changes like for?
No, because it's still,
time?
by doing this as an early release, we're not extending the school day for the teacher. And I've had conversations with Mike, current president of the Teacher Association, and he agrees that this doesn't impact the teacher contract because it stays within the confines of the 7-hour, 40-minute workday.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll say I appreciate the update here, and like, yeah, just scrolling through these comments here, it seems like that childcare issue is, or pickup,
that is
the primary issue here. And I think, like you mentioned as well, is there opportunities for partnership with Baker? Is there opportunities for some of our high school kids to go down to the elementaries to provide, you know, really interactive, project-based things that they do once a month, for instance, for an hour and a half? I mean, I think we could be pretty creative about making this a really interesting and fun thing for kids, and not just be a hardship on families to have to pick up their kids, you know, an hour and a half early. But, so yeah, just keep exploring those ideas there.
Okay.
So my question is, so if you're going to bring the calendar in February, would we have answers to some of these childcare questions before then?
That will be, yes. So
Okay.
I will be updating the board, you know, between now and then, as well as that night on a lot of that.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yep.
And are you pretty set on doing the early release, not the late start? Because I know one of the big concerns with late start was whether kids would be able to get breakfast.
I would, yes. And that, so for me, stepping away from the late start was twofold. One, it was kids missing out on breakfast and the tight turnaround that would put on our kitchen staff to be able to do that, because we already working with 2 and 3 individuals within those kitchens to be able to pull what they do daily off. And the other side, to me, you talk about the hardship. It's one thing to pick up a kid after school, but it's entirely different when you have to be at work at 8 o'clock, but the school doesn't start until 9:30. That can, or 9 o'clock, excuse me. That to me is a bigger hardship on the family.
Yeah.
So my inclination, where I'm leaning towards, if something were to happen, it would be towards that early release.
I like the idea of, if they want to, utilizing the non-classified, the classified.
Yes, and that's the other thing.
Because they're gonna lose pay.
Well, and so here's the thing, I do not want this to be financed on the backs of our classified staff.
Yeah.
I fully, I could envision those staff being part of professional development opportunities, special education pairs being able to be part of professional learning that takes place there, or opportunities for staff to do some supervision or leading, you know, someone within comments said this might be a great opportunity for clubs at the elementary school to be, you know, to work its way.
Sponsorship.
So, yeah, I think that there's some other opportunities. You know, do you look at it as a challenge, or do you look at it as an opportunity? So I think that definitely this is not something where classified staff would see 6.5 hours or 6 hours of reduced pay on their work year. I don't want that to be the case.
And along with that, one other concern that I remember hearing was for SPED kiddos that might require more specialized supervision, what that would look like for families that may not be able to come and pick them up early.
Right. Absolutely.
So more on that later.
More on that, but I just wanted you to have an update in terms of where I was within that at this time.
All right, so on to course approvals.
All right, so Ashley Troth and Brant Brittingham have a list of courses they would like the board to consider approving for the coming school year regarding some CTE and physical education classes.
Oh, you
You
took
were
the chair,
sitting
so
over there.
I'm good. Okay. We sent some courses that we were looking for approval at the high school. I think we've added one more since Friday. So to expand our CTE pathways, we have Bakery 1 and 2, Law Enforcement 1 and 2, and Cybersecurity. We have 2 new courses for PE and health, and one's just a change. And then an AP European history, and then it'd technically be a new course for every pathway, but we put it as one as that workplace experience, so every pathway would have that as an option. And then what you have to add?
I think what I would add to that is kind of what she already alluded to. Like the timeline is, one, we have pre-enrollment that will be coming up for students. Usually we try to couple that with student-led conferences in the spring, which is I think February 14th, 15th, and 16th, but I could be off one day on that. Then the other thing that I need to do is on some of these CTE courses, I need to get those entered at the state level by February 15th. So we'll update course catalog, I'll get them entered at the state level, and then I have to come up with a local course code through Power School, right, so that we can then start to pre-enroll kids. Just a couple other things that are probably important to mention. Some of those ones on the CTE I spoke to at the last board meeting, offering more courses and being a little more strategic with our FTE, basically our units or our sections that we have the ability to devote to courses. The one I thought I might just go a little bit more in depth on is the 3 new PE courses. So currently right now, KSD's graduation requirements, we have to have a full unit of PE, and we have the ability to kind of embed health into that. So if you think about right now, we have Bob Belisher and Gentry Wade and John Collum, but the ones that are here the majority of the day, that would be Mr. Lisher and Mrs. Wade. They each teach 4 sections of PE. So imagine over the course of a year, we have 12 sections that we have the flexibility to work with. They teach 4 sections that are devoted to PE. So basically we have the ability to run around 100 kids through that. What we're then proposing is, and this is, we've really dug into how we code this makes all the difference at the state level. So we're that health and fitness, it replaces our current year-long freshman PE. We'll still embed the health standards and curriculum into that. Right now, that's something that Ashley is diving more into, seeing what resources are out there so that we're not just creating it all from scratch. And then obviously with the nature of education, that would be something we would come to you all with, so that you could then see that. So then it gets board approved. And so you're all aware of what we're doing in freshman level PE. But the important piece is we would go from a year long to a semester long. So imagine right now, we basically, like I said, we devote those 4 sections or units. We're able to work 100 kids through over the course of a year. Now we can do it in half as many units or sections. So basically, we're devoting 33% of their FTE to teaching freshman level PE and health. And then that would actually reduce to 16.7 at the bar over. So,
and because the graduation requirements are changing is why we're changing what this looks like. So they need only half a semester of PE and half a semester of health, but they cannot be embedded. They have to be separate.
But again, the caveat being if we code it correctly, then we still in essence have the ability to do that. But the other thing I would just say, so what that would allow us to do then, 2 other courses that we would then propose would be Lifetime Fitness. That's something Mrs. Wade is passionate about, hence the name Lifetime Fitness. That would be a plethora of activities. Could be yoga one day, Could be like a step aerobic type class one day. Another day might just be devoted to, core and functional movements. So something that they could take when they leave this place. And then something else that we'd add is an athletic development course. And this one would be, they could take weights, and then in conjunction with that, they could do this athletic development, which would be kind of like agility training, plyometric training, speed work, quickness, those sorts of things, change of direction. So there's a scenario where you could take like this a base weights class, and then you could come back or double up. So it's giving someone that really has ambitions, maybe the ability, they want to go do that post-secondary, they have that ability. So it's just kind of advancing our PE program.
It's a couple of things that I'm proud of as they work through this is the transition, the focus that's taking place within the CTE courses that are there.
The moving ahead and with the evolving of the law enforcement pathway that's established and is kind of pretty healthy interest right now. And then the last part is when we hired Mr. Collum, we did so under that idea of we wanted infuse some new life, an opportunity to add to our physical education opportunities by having another staff member help offset some of that. And so between Mr. Collin, Mr. Wade, or Miss Wade, and Mr. Lisher, they have been able to kind of just dream up some really cool class opportunities that takes our physical education from a checkbox, if you will, and put together a really cool advanced PE programming together for our kids. Whether it's Lifetime Fitness or, as Brant talked about, someone who wants to go more towards that athletic development side of things. So I'm really excited for these courses that they're recommending.
The only other piece that I would add is currently freshmen, they have to take PE and health. Now they would have to be able to take that health and fitness course eventually as freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So right now, it just creates more flexibility for a kid as a freshman. If they wanted to take something else sooner, they would have the ability to do that.
So with this coding, can kids not take traditional PE? They could just take athletic development and Lifetime Fitness, or some combination of that.
Yeah, at least. So they would all have to take the health and fitness class, and so obviously we're looking at something that would address the health aspects of that, and then they could embed into that, and I don't know completely what that would look like. Maybe that's every Wednesday. They're up in the library working through whatever that lesson might be, and the other 4 days they're doing physical activity. We really kind of wanted to steer clear of just placing students in a health classroom for an entire semester. Right? They're taking a physical education class, hence the physical part of it. They want to do something, right? And so we're really trying to again address the standards, but then also get them doing something physical.
So this is great. It feels like this is more courses than we typically add in a year.
Yeah, the primary reason is addition of technical and application level courses as we kind of revamp
the culinary piece in particular.
And then we will eventually have more. We just don't quite know where we're going on the ELA side of things with the state graduation
requirements, but we're just knocking out as much as we can right now so that we can get it in the books and get ready for pre-enrollment and do all the just semantics.
Yeah, so one of my concerns here is that, each of these requires a prep. Additional prep for your staff to do that. Is there a minimum threshold for, if 3 kids register for a class, do we decide to collapse that one and try again in the spring? Because otherwise we're going to end up with some real quirky patterns where staff being overwhelmed.
Yeah. So, that's a great question, because really everything's going to be, to a degree, dictated by pre-enrollment. Yeah. Meaning, and this could be with anything, but let's just say, for instance, I have 10 kids that pre-enroll in cybersecurity, then I'm probably looking at only one section. Right? We're only going to offer one section. unfortunately that becomes a singleton. If I get 30 to 40 kids, then
Now we're trying to see, okay, well, those 30 to 40 kids, they've enrolled in this course, which means they haven't enrolled in something. Is it something in this department? But that's something we do after we pre-enroll. Our counselors give departments all of their pre-enrollment numbers, and then they sit down and come up with 1, 2, 3 different scenarios sometimes as to how they're going to. It might be, we want 5 sections of this. We could go 4 of this, but then class sizes are bigger, so they start to just look at what they think's best. They bring it to us.
After that.
Yeah, all after.
Okay, so I didn't know there was a multiple phase. Okay, so that helps me.
So we can't offer it at pre-enrollment until we have approval.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. I just don't want to be in a situation where we're asking a teacher to prep 5 different courses that only have 4 kids enrolled in each of them or something.
Yeah.
But that sounds like there's a safeguard for that.
Yeah, and I can't say that some years, we have some more flexibility for whatever reason, and maybe a class of 4 or 5 flies, for lack of better terms, and then some years we say, I really think we need to add a section of integrated science versus a physics 2 course.
And it might be a requirement for seniors, for instance, to graduate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do we have staff certified for all of these?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That was gonna be my question, is the process. Like, do you have to have the staff in place first before you
yeah, I mean,
offer
certainly,
courses?
we wouldn't create a course or offer something where we didn't have someone that was certified. So it's a huge, KSD has a licensure guide out there where you can go in and look up the 5-digit course code, and then it'll list all the certifications that have the ability to teach that class.
Gotcha.
Are we need to?
So, yeah, what they're looking for is
Is a
an
motion
approval
to
of
approve
the
it.
courses.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try to phrase this right. I move that we approve the courses as presented. Is that covered enough?
Yeah, proposed courses, yeah.
Yep.
I second.
All right, we got a motion and a second, so all those in favor, right hand, say aye.
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 Thanks, guys.
All right,
Mhm.
thank you.
Overtime in the junior high gym. Wellsville's up for it.
Okay.
All right, on to the board handbook. So, I mean, I'll just go ahead. This is Kelly's handbook that she put together. And it is a wonderful resource that you guys, everybody on the board, whether you've been on the board before or not, it should be read probably cover to cover and then memorized.
I read it last night. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I pulled it up. It's mine. It's sitting on my desktop right here, but open to whatever page we're on right now, so I can read it. But I mean, it's I mean, an absolute labor of love on her part to have put that together. And I think pretty definitive and definitely worth reading. And so I'm sure she's not watching right now, but I would tell her thank you for putting that together. But
yeah, it's really great.
All right, Megan, can you remind me what were what was shared last month to tonight's version? What was the change that we needed to make? Was it the adding of the wellness committee? Yeah, that was the only addition that we made. The initial draft that was shared that we updated.
That is the draft that's uploaded.
That is the draft. The updated one is what's uploaded. Okay.
all right. So questions about that at all? I'm sure that there's something in there that I mean, I'm sure she'd be open to. I would hate to volunteer her, but I know that she's would be happy to talk with somebody about something that's in there. So, all right, on to live streaming of the Board of Education meetings, discussions. I asked for this to get put in there just because now we've got, with new members on the board, I think it's just something that we need to just continually think about, talk about, and be deliberate in either continuing or ceasing that. To give some history, when I started on the board, Chris, that was what, 6 years ago, something like that. 6 years ago, we were not doing any no live streaming. We were meeting over at the PC. When we started with the whole pandemic thing and started shutting down, we started doing Zoom meetings, and then when we started meeting in person again, we started doing the live streaming because we were trying to keep people from gathering in big groups. That kind of then has taken legs, and we've continued on with that. I think there are some positives to it. I think there are some downsides to it. It's a lot of extra work to get all of this set up and set to go. And in the scenario, in the world that we're in now, I mean, there's nothing that's preventing people from coming to a board meeting that really desire to come to a board meeting. I know it helps Megan, though, to have it on video so she can go back and review and make sure that she's got something that she missed.
I use it because it's there.
Yeah. So my personal preference, and I'm certainly one of 7, but my personal preference would to say I don't think it's worth continuing because there's nothing preventing the traditional come to the meeting, sign up, listen, and be here and be part of that like there was when we started doing that. So.
It's different context. Do we have any indication on how many people actually watch?
You can see the thing, and I think it's like 3, 2, 1, 2, 3.
3. Oh, okay. All right.
So, I mean,
It depends on the topic of the meeting.
Yeah, right.
But then I'm one of
It's Megan. It's Megan.
Yeah, it's Megan. Yeah, it's probably Kay. So I mean, I just think that it's a whole lot of effort that's going in and probably not being used in a manner that's like we're intending it. I mean, to go back to when we were having, every big kind of thing that we've gone through as a board, if we go back and look at the old bond, I mean, here we are having meetings that are open, people can come talk to us, be at the meeting, do public comment, be at everything, we videotape it, it's live streamed, and one of the big accusations was we're not being transparent. So I don't see that the juice being worth the squeeze on continuing to do that. So my preference would be to stop for those reasons.
Don't think about me on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the kind of the only really upside that I can see is that.
And if people can't come to the meeting for whatever reason, they can go back and look at the minutes when they're posted later,
Yeah.
right?
Just like they used to, I guess. Yeah. I hadn't thought about this, really.
I've never looked at them. Okay, you're on there. Okay.
I still think, I don't know, the video might feel a little more transparent, I guess. I mean, I know I've watched them, but apparently I was one of the only ones.
Just you and Megan.
Just me and Megan chilling.
It's kind of, in my opinion, it became like Jerry Springer. Like, well, can't wait to get on there and see who's got
Right.
the comment
for a while,
today, and then it dies off as like we get down to the meat and potatoes, like financial report, administrative reports, then all of a sudden it's just Lacey and
I feel as long as everything is communicated in the minutes, then that's transparency enough.
And again, everybody's welcome to come to the meeting. I mean, it's well advertised. And I just know it's a lot of effort to do.
Especially if no one's utilizing it.
Right. And I'm not even necessarily. I mean, if everybody's in agreement, somebody wants to make a motion, I'm happy to do that. But it's something to be thinking about. If everybody wants to think about it for a month and talk about it, and decide and talk about it next month, that's fine. We can slip it over into old business. I just wanted to make sure that we're deliberate about whether we're just I don't want to just keep doing it because we've been doing
it. Do we have any policies that are attached to this in any way?
I don't believe we do.
And we probably didn't pass a motion to start off with to start live streaming.
passed a motion or anything saying
We just started doing it.
that we were going to do this. It was just a courtesy that we provided because people didn't want to come in groups.
Sure.
And then we've just been tweaking it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I would have just naturally gone with status quo forever and not really second guess the,
Yeah, you know.
is it still important and is it still worth everybody's time and effort? Because, yeah, I mean, we're having to coordinate technology here and orient cameras and poor Kay's kind of devoting her nights. She's probably beaming over there thinking, I got Monday nights back, you know? I don't know. I mean,
I move we just continue live streaming.
So there's a motion. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye and raise your right hand. Right?
I missed the motion. See, this is why we need like.
Say aye, get out of here. Too late. We already motioned. We already did it.
Jamie, you're
Yeah.
quiet as two.
Yeah.
Put a little tape recorder for you.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Oh, I got an app on my phone. It's fine.
So okay, cut this feed.
you put the bars out, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Got it.
Okay. And you know, anytime we make that we do a motion like that, you know, if we get all of a sudden, you know, 3,000 USD student voices saying, "Hey, this was our homework, and now we can't watch you on the meeting for the weekend. We need to reinstate it." We can always put it back in. I mean, we have the ability to add it back if we want. So, moving on to K, board member input, interlocal report.
Do you want to do that?
Oh, yeah, I'm all
All right, I'll do the update this month. How about that? So I'll give you guys a bit of orientation around why we're in interlocal to start off with, because I think it's helpful context to have. So when special education law went into effect in the mid-'70s, most districts in Kansas decided to consolidate services as a means of being more cost-effective and more efficient there. For example, I mean, our interlocal used to be much bigger, had multiple districts than we currently have, just over 3, Westwood, Dora, and us. Most districts our size are part of either a cooperative or an interlocal. The difference being that an interlocal is a self-sustaining entity, that it doesn't have a taxable authority there. It has its own board that's comprised of the member districts. A special education cooperative is housed by a district. So Baster, Linwood, and Tonganoxie are part of a cooperative that's housed in Baster, I believe. They're the fiscal agent for all that, and all those co-op employees are technically Baster, Linwood employees, even though they actually work in Tonganoxie, for instance, right? Our folks that we hire through our interlocal are interlocal employees. We have our own negotiated agreement, and so it's kind of just a slight difference of management there. I think we're one of the smaller interlocals in the whole state. With our 3, I think there's a couple that have 2 districts in it. But generally speaking, we're a relatively small organization. With that, we do have about 85 certified staff members and about 120, depending on the day, classified staff members. So we do have quite a bit of payroll that goes into our organization. Our average budget is somewhere north of about $8 million a year across, and it's about 96% of that, 97% of that is just devoted to salaries. We don't operate buses. We don't own any property. We rent a facility or an office down there in downtown Baldwin there. But we are a very lean organization that's devoted to the employees, their benefits, and the mileage reimbursement, basically, is what most of our expenses come down to. So we have a 6-person board, 2 people from each member district there, which makes for some quirky voting sometimes if people don't show up for member meetings sometimes. So, and so oftentimes we'll get into the situation where we have just four members there voting on things because of other obligations. So the same rules apply that we have here as well, like for coma, quorum, those types of things that we're all learning about as well here. Those all still apply to the operations of interlocal as well. So that's a bit of background on how the interlocal looks. One thing that's going to make Jimmy's life really interesting right now is that we are in the middle of hiring a new SPED director for the next school year. I did talk to KASB is helping us navigate that application process. We do have several applicants already in. We'll have a variety of meetings and interviews coming up between now and I think the next time we get together as a board here. We'll have started our interview process by that point as well. So I'll share those dates with you that are on the calendar currently. And that'll be treated just like a superintendent search, where we're having multiple states are getting this information fed to them. We're trying to recruit as many folks as we can to apply for that position there. It's a very complicated job to be an interlocal director there, because you have to be a sort of a superintendent as well as a special education director at the same time. So we're trying to cast as wide of a net as possible to make sure we get good candidates for that position there. Just like this board, we meet monthly. We have typically met at the office here in Baldwin here but we've also been rotating it between Eudora and Wellsville for getting more disbursement of our meetings across our communities that we serve as well. So that's been an appreciated change this year. And just like here, we have a strategic plan that we're guided by, which we adopted about a year ago as well. So that's the basic gist of the update and report there. And so each month we'll come together and provide updates on staffing, for instance, and assessments is kind of how our district pays for those services to the interlocal as well there. If you guys ever have questions about that, you now have 2 representatives here to field those questions as well. But yeah, anything else I'm leaving out, Mark, in terms of background for how that thing holding operates? So
in your 6-person board, how many of them are going to be new? I mean, how many of the existing 6 are no longer?
I think Wellsville's meeting today, if I remember correctly, maybe yesterday they met, so I'm not sure what their appointments were, but both members from Eudora that had been part of that board previously both lost their re-elections. So we have 2 new board members coming from there. Fortunately, one's been a veteran. She's been there for 4 years already. So, I mean, on the Eudora board, so she understands the game that we all play for board membership here. I'm not sure about Wellsville, but it could just be myself and 1 member, or maybe 2 from Wellsville if they both continue. So it'll be a critical voting mass of folks to be part of that organization as well. And we're putting them all right to work by hiring a new director right out of the gate. So. And that was by design. We want to make sure that person was selected by the new board so they could support that person in that new role as well. But,
good.
Anything else, Mark, I'm leaving out?
No, I think you did a really good job there.
All right. Done.
All right. So then, yep. Education, advocacy, and info items.
I believe that was a space holder that was recommended a couple of months ago.
Okay.
If there's anything education, advocacy-wise, if you're happen to be on a connection to an advocacy, it's spearheaded off, and I'm throwing you under the bus on this. Sorry, Susan. You're part of a group or connected to a network.
Advocacy.
Yes. Yeah. So it's an opportunity to kind of share with the board what's kind of being discussed, if you have any information like that.
Yeah.
So.
And I haven't been to the last meeting. I wasn't at the last meeting, and they do a really nice job on your KASB updates too, newsletters. It really kind of filling you in on what's happening at the State House.
All right, miscellaneous. Does anybody go to any meetings recently?
I didn't, and I'm going to miss next month's. I thought I was going to be able to zoom in, but we got it changed to the Tuesday night, right? So I'll be on a plane home.
Oh, for next month's meeting, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, was it moved because of the holiday as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't put that in my calendar.
So nothing else miscellaneous board member input? Nothing? So do we need a superintendent's report?
I've got a couple of things.
In there. I was going to just skip over you.
I know, because a couple of things I should have put them in there. One thing I wanted to plant a seed with you, a conversation that I've been having with Derek and Bench over at the junior high for a better part of last year and this year is what can we do truancy-wise to help encourage students who are having trouble getting to school for whatever reason to come to school, and how can we work with families to build partnership to let them know we're here to support them, we want to support them, but we also have legislative requirements that we have to abide by. 3 consecutive days, 5 in a semester, or 7 in a school year that are unexcused absences. What can we do to help change the trajectory of that? Through a conversation that Derek had at a Live Well Douglas County awards recognition for the work that the junior high has done within the bike grant that they received. He was able to partner up with somebody or sit at a table with someone who's got this program it's Support Ed, and what it does is it develops a partnership trying to help support families, getting them the resources they need to help get their students to school. It's kind of that an intermediary before you get to that truancy report. When you talk about truancy report, it automatically red flags go up, defensiveness comes up, and it becomes a difficult relationship process with the families. And so we're learning more about Support Ed in terms of what opportunities they can do to help support the family to help get their child to school so that we can help them learn. We will have, at our academic team meeting on the 23rd, we'll have a representative there to kind of share with all of our admin the opportunity that they can provide to school districts within that, what that partnership looks like. And my understanding is, as I'm learning more about this, this is something that sounds good for us and something that we would like to see happen, whether it's piloting at one building or in my preference to have, if it's good for one building, let's see what we can do so that the whole system can benefit from it, to get that partnership in place, sign an MOU if necessary to help support our families within this process. So more is to come on that. After visiting with our academic team, we've got an opportunity to have that Support Ed be here at the board meeting in February to share more about that information with you as the board. So just want to give you a heads up, that's to come. I know Derek has shared some of that information with you, but it's some really cool opportunities that can provide for our community in that sense. The other thing I wanted to just put in front of you is to do kind of a first public look at a graphic that I would like to send out this week regarding special education funding. And this is in alignment with the priorities that you adopted here. So I'm going to put up on the screen here for you once it shows up. Okay, am I not catching the other one? All right.
It's on the far one.
Oh, yeah, it is over there.
It's on the far one, but I'm looking for the big one. Okay, so this is a really great graphic that will soon be on that TV. Superintendent, and you've got one in your packet. So superintendents in the state have been working to help with an information push about special education funding and the impact that our current situation has when the excess costs aren't funded at 92% like statute states that it needs to be. And so what has done is this graphic itself has been established and put out for us to be able to update it with Baldwin USD 348 information as it relates to last school year. And so what I've done is I've put together some numbers with the help of Nate with finances to kind of try to tell the story of what special education funding looks like in USD 348. So the $2.8 million that you see there is the total dollars that we spent on special education costs for last school year in 2022-23. The second item there reflects the special education funds received from the state. Last year, those excess costs were funded in the amount of 72%, or the 0.72 multiplier that's within that statute. And so when you think about that, when you look at all of the dollars that our district needed to transfer to pay that $2.8 million, our district transferred $1.1 million to cover the difference that was there. Now, special education funding itself is something that there's a federal law requires maintenance of effort, meaning you need to spend as much this year as you did last year at a minimum. And very few exceptions are made that allows that funding to reduce. Most specifically, it's when you have a significant decline in your special education population. We don't have that. And so when you look at what's taken place, last year, to be able to cover the difference, roughly $500,000 were attributed within that $1.1 million to make up the excess cost that the state wasn't paying that would have gotten us to 92%. All right, then you take the 8% beyond that is obviously on the taxpayers of our community because the statute requires that. And anything above 92% we cover. But we also know special education is an investment in students, and so because we are part of an interlocal, we also have additional costs that are associated with that. The interlocal itself provides a great deal of resources that we can provide by being in that network with two other districts that we could not provide if we tried to do it locally on our own. And I'll get to that here in a second. And so as you're looking at this, that maintenance of effort, in addition to the state not meeting their statutory requirement of 92%, puts a significant burden on local taxpayers and school boards to be able to pay those costs. And so when you attribute 500,000, that's roughly 3.84 mils out of the LOB that was associated with trying to make some of these costs happen. And so when we start looking at what would happen if 92% in a clean special education only funding bill, what that would look like for us. There are things that we could do with LOB. You could look at enhancing staff salaries, whether it's our teachers that we're trying to make sure that they are paid more for the work that they do. Classified staff, we need to up our classified staff. We've talked about that. We know that. We also have the ability to reduce some of that tax burden on our local community. We could reduce a mill or two and be able to provide some relief there. If you're a taxpayer, you've already, and this is me getting a little bit on the advocacy soapbox, we've got a surplus of almost $4 billion, $3 to $4 billion at the state. All right? As a taxpayer, you've already sent that money in that could have paid 92% special education costs already this year. But the legislators didn't allow for that. So the local school board, to be able to make the budget happen, had to levy additional LOB taxes to be able to cover those sped costs. So as a taxpayer, you're kind of getting it twice on that front. Does that make sense? Does that theory hold a little water there? And so this is why this is important here. When you're looking at what we do with special education and why it's important that we get that full funding, 18% of the students in USD 348 take part in special education. That's on the high end of the average, state average. We have 12 special education categories that we are leveraging to meet the needs of our students within their education, their individualized education plans. With that, we have 70 trained staff within our school district that provide special education services, from paras to teachers to therapists, etc. Additionally, and this goes back to that statement, we as an interlocal have the ability to put programs together that we could not take part in on our own. Those programs are WEBs, which is our behavior program, students whose behavior is in need of specialized instruction to be able to learn. We have Bridges, which is a special education programming for some intensive needs, some significant intensive needs as they begin to age out, as well as CARDS, which focuses on autism program, which is housed in Eudora School District. We have Bridges here over at the junior high.
What was that last one called?
CARDS. Students that have autism that qualify for that specialized program would go to Eudora for that. And then WEBS is also housed in Eudora, which they have for elementary, junior, and high school. So this graphic, it's intended to be informational for our community. I will be releasing this on our district social media accounts. I wanted you as a board to kind of have some talking points for that, and so I hope this graphic itself can speak to that. I will tell you that what the clean bill specific to special education is important. There's talk at the state level of if they fully fund special education, are they going to reduce the 20 mils to the general fund as they're making things happen. There's talk of, well, they think the money's already there, so let's rework the formula. There's a lot of work in trying to keep the status quo, just changing the language of the statutes. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, that's the conversation they're having. What our community and our legislators need to see and understand is what's really taking place within our school district. And so it's my hope that this graphic will be there. I will also tell you, and just to kind of from new board's perspective, when it comes to interaction on social media, I'm sure this will garner some conversation and some comments. I'll monitor the comments, but I generally won't respond from the USD 348 account. If anyone has any questions about special education funding, I'm always happy to sit down with anyone to talk about things. Nate and I have sat down with folks that have had questions regarding budget. Happy to do that as well on this topic, but I won't engage in that dialogue on social media.
I know I had received an email from a community member who was wanting to know the best way to, I guess, try try to advocate for this,
Mhm.
would that be just contacting your?
Contacting your legislator.
Okay.
The legislators prefer to hear from parents. They prefer to hear from taxpayers. As a school representative, we do our best to communicate with them, but where their interest really comes from are the parents, and that's where the biggest impact comes, is when a parent can sit down and share their perspective and their story of the impact the special education funding has on their child.
When you release this, would it be beneficial to share the legislative priorities that you're sharing so that we have some accountability with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And when will this be released?
What's that? I would like to get it out this week.
Okay.
And Mark, you had mentioned that our transfer to special education as a district is somewhere in like the 4 to 5, like it would equate to being 4 to 5 mils per year.
3 to 4.
3 to 4 mils. Okay. I'm just looking at our mill levy history here, in which our total mill levy currently is at 52 mils. So we're talking about like 8% of our mills or something. I mean, not napkin math there, but like it's a lot of our mills. And this comes out of our LOB.
Well, it's the general fund is where you transfer the dollars to pay for special education, but we need those LOB dollars to be able to make up for the general fund dollars that were transferred out.
Okay. So in other words, it's a pretty healthy chunk that we're actually contributing, and it's the right ethical thing to do as well as legal thing to do, is to obviously to fund these services for kids, right?
Right.
But if there were maybe the obligation of the law, this would be right. It would do a lot for our budget in terms of flexibility, what we could pull off. Like you mentioned that list.
Exactly.
Just thinking of that percentage of like that really is astounding. I hadn't thought about it from that percent or that viewpoint before.
And I know you use the 22-23 school year because that one's been closed out, but for the 23-24 school year,
that
I believe
impact is going to be greater.
69%, correct? And then it's expected to drop to 67 next year?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So what you have here are the total dollars, because we'll know what that official, and to your point, Jamie, we'll know what that official impact is by May or June when we get our final legal max letter from the state, when they say, okay, here's how much money you actually got from the state, now balance your budget. So.
Do we need an executive session?
Yes, for that one issue.
Oh, yeah. Do you need a break?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to go to recess. How long do you need?
I don't know.
We'll do, how about?
2 minutes.
Okay.
I'll run.
Yeah, I'll give you 10. How about that? We'll do
I don't
10.
need 10, but okay.
Maybe I need 10.
Okay.
Okay. A motion that we go into executive session to discuss personnel pursuant to the exception for non-elected personnel under coma. The open meeting will resume in 10 minutes at 9:11, and we're going to ask Mr. Brittingham and Mr. Dodge to join us. We get a second?
Second.
Chris Perry seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Say aye.
Aye.
7-0, Megan. We go around the corner into the secret, the inner sanctum, the holy of holies.
Dun, dun, dun.
Brad, the other one's in the case.
Where? South of Wichita. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss place.
That's Whoville.
need a second to look at the personnel
Yeah,
report?
'cause we don't
Yes.
need to
We
discuss it.
don't, no, there's nothing to discuss on it.
I'll look at it again.
It was all retirements. And some people that have been here a long time.
Yeah.
Also, when you adjourn, please come back and sign.
Oh, sign everything.
All of the resolutions and appointments that you guys just approved on the consent agenda.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what you're signing before you sign it.
Thanks. Yeah, and since we're into now considering executive session matters, there is a good section in the board handbook that Kelly put together that's about executive session. But executive session is kind of a unique part of the meeting that there are some pretty strict rules about. So I would say review that. But really, when we go into executive session, we're only in there for a specific amount of time, and that's when Megan will come knock on the door, let us know when that time is up. If we want to rediscuss, like if we wanted to go back in there and talk about something more, we come back out and make a new motion. Says we want to go in there for another 10 minutes with these people for this reason. It's only a very small, limited number of reasons we can go into executive session. And then the board can go into executive session, by themselves. We have to invite anybody else that's not elected. We have to ask them to come in, and then what goes on in there has to stay in there, kind of thing. So.
Don't even tell your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You keep a secret from your spouse.
That's right, everybody. So I think that's it, right?
Yep.
All right. So we just need a motion to.
Consider-
Oh no! Oh, consider. We have to approve the personnel. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the personnel report.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
7-0, Megan. It was me and Susan.
You guys just completed your first.
Not yet.
Who's gonna be the one
I'm
to do the
abdicating.
honorary
Adjourner.
adjourning, a motion to adjourn?
I don't know what that is, so not me, I guess.
I make a motion to adjourn?
We've got I second. Everybody who wants to adjourn, I say aye.
Aye.
7-0.
Wait, is that my job now?
Still until you, Bill.